Hello, everyone. This is Dawn Takacs. Welcome to the Point Podcast. And today I have an episode and a conversation that's going to stay with you a long time after this podcast ends. I am meeting with a bride who had planned her wedding for 2026. She had a location, she had a date, she had a vision, she had everything in place. And then all of a sudden, life took a turn and she had to make some hard decisions about what her dream wedding looked like. And it put her in a place that I think other brides may be, whether they're here in Pittsburgh or around the world. And I want to share her story with you. So without further ado, I want to welcome Becky Haskins Snodgrass to the podcast.
Hello. Hello.
So
Happy
Becky,
New Year.
so thank you first for sharing your story here with everyone. First question I have for you is, how are you doing?
Okay. We made it through Thanksgiving. We're doing good. As good as good can be, I guess.
Yeah. There's no new normal that works, right?
It was a very weird day yesterday and Thanksgiving, not having my dad's booming voice there. I said dinner was ready, things like that. But I'm very grateful for the group of individuals that my family has chosen as their spouses. So we lovingly call them the outlaws, because they've all married in. They, within days of my dad's passing, we got together and started planning Thanksgiving, knowing that my mom was not going to want to plan it or do really anything for it. They were already planning Thanksgiving since September because they knew it was my dad's favorite holiday. They knew it was going to be our first holiday without him. And they wanted us to go into that having to do nothing, which was really nice.
It's so wonderful to be surrounded by community, friends, outlaws, as you called them affectionately,
yes,
lovingly, that can see the need before you see it and anticipate it. And for those that are listening to this podcast, Becky Snodgrass and Ashton, her now husband, they were planning their wedding for 2026. And Becky's dad took ill with a critical illness, IPF. Can you explain what IPF is?
Yes. So IPF is Idiopathic Pulmonary Fibrosis. There are different versions of pulmonary fibrosis. Some have known causes and others don't. Idiopathic is the one that we don't know why this happened. There's no rhyme or reason that scientifically they have found that has caused this. And essentially, it's a buildup of scar tissue in the lung, and the pattern that it takes is what tells them kind of what caused it, and that honeycombing. And so they were able to tell by his pattern that they didn't know why just yet. They have no idea what caused it. And typical life expectancy is about 2 to 3 years. At least it was back in 2019 when he was diagnosed.
Okay.
And he found it on accident. He was helping my cousin move, and he was doing something and he fell and he hurt his side. So he drove himself to the ER because that's who he was. And they were like, there's a spot in your lungs that looks a little funny. You should get that checked out. And then suddenly it was IPF. And he was doing great for years. And you would have never known, even a year ago, you would have never known. But in February, he started declining due to a few reasons, but it just kind of rapidly takes over. So that's the one thing with IPF, is that you have these exacerbations of pulmonary fibrosis in general. You have these exacerbations with the worsening of symptoms, and it causes it to significantly increase. And once that all started, it just very, very quickly declined.
And during this time frame, you became engaged to Ashton, the love of your life.
Right.
When was the engagement?
It was November of 2023.
So you were about a year in on your engagement.
Right. We're about a year and a half in on the engagement, the planning process for November 2026 wedding. And because we wanted to do it ourselves, we didn't want my parents, his family, to have to contribute monetarily or even physically, because we knew my dad's health was declining. Just in general, we knew he was sick. And I wanted to make sure that everyone was in a position where we were financially able to have the wedding that we wanted, but also financially able to make it so like my parents didn't have to do anything involving labor or physical labor.
Yeah. Which was really hard for your mom on the day of the wedding.
So hard. She has to be so busy. She has to have her hands in everything.
And for those that are listening, this family was going through this, the Haskin family. And all of a sudden, one day, I get a Facebook message from Becky, who's a member of Pittsburgh Brides. And you reached out to me, I believe it was July of
It was July
2025.
31st.
Okay.
Because it was after my dad's appointment with his pulmonologist that I went to. It was the first appointment I had gone to. And towards the end of the appointment, my dad looked at the pulmonologist and said, this is my daughter that's getting married, because they've been talking about it. And I remember the transplant pulmonologist looking at me and being like, oh, when are you getting married? And I said, next November. And he kind of paused and sat back and tilted his head and gave me that all-knowing look and was like, why are you waiting? And my dad immediately chimed in, was like, oh, they don't want me to pay for anything. They don't want me to do this, like joking around.
Right.
But my weddings are expensive. And then the way the pulmonologist looked at me, he knew something, right? And that's the vibe I got. And I left that appointment immediately texting Ashton saying, we've got to move this up. Dad's not making it till next year. And that's kind of what started our side of things. Was that appointment where I had to have that conversation with the pulmonologist and have him look at me like that.
Yeah.
He knew.
And how that had to have hit you like a thunderbolt. It had to have hit you like really hard because you didn't see it coming, right?
Yeah, I was not expecting that, especially from someone who, like, I had gone into that appointment with my parents talking about how this pulmonologist, like, jokes around and he's so personable. And that appointment was not that. He was very serious and the mood definitely had shifted. I figure if he's going to say something like that, it's for a reason.
Yeah. Did your dad pick up on that?
Well, he did. He did.
I mean, now you know what you didn't know before that appointment. Now you know that you have to take a path forward. What's going through your brain?
One, it was getting Ashton to agree was going to be my first step. I was like, he's not going to agree to move this up because we had been so set in doing this ourselves and having the time to enjoy it. And I immediately texted, when I was talking to Ashton, I said, you didn't see the look I just got. He's not making it for next year. Ashton, without pause, said, we're getting married next month. Like, we're doing it. Just without pause, without hesitation. There was no questions asked. He knew what it meant to me and my dad, and ultimately what it meant to him, too. To have dad there.
Yeah.
Because Ashton didn't grow up with a dad. And so Ashton and my dad were very close very quickly.
Yeah.
Then it was, I had to tell my mom that we were moving the wedding up. And she knew, too, because I was leaving their house after that appointment. And I was like, and I think she was going to bring it up that like we needed to move the wedding. And I was like, we're moving the wedding. Like before she could even say anything.
Yeah.
And she was just like, okay. And you saw her kind of like relax a little bit because that's what she was going to bring up. But she didn't want to be the one to say like, I think that was their version of giving us bad news. So she was a little relieved that like I picked up on it on my own.
Yeah.
And then it was telling dad that we picked up on that. I know you did too. This is what I want. I was telling myself that it didn't matter where I was. I had Ashton, I had my mom, and I had my dad.
Yeah.
And my sister and Con, because they mean a lot to me. But otherwise, I felt like I didn't care in that moment. Now, that changed a little bit down the line. But in that moment, like I could have gone to the courthouse and done it, but I also knew my dad wanted to experience that with me.
Yeah.
And so it was just figuring out how to make that happen.
Sure. Yeah. And that's when you messaged me shortly after your conversation with Ashton, correct?
I did. I got home and I was sitting there and I was like, okay. And that was kind of like, I just said, I'm moving this. No, I'm moving this. And it was kind of like, I was scared a little bit because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I was planning on having 2 years to plan a wedding. And now you want me to plan it. And I don't even know how many days.
30 days. We're getting married next month, right?
Right. We're getting married in August. Who knows when that is? But we're getting married next month. So I was like, what did I just get myself into? And so you and I had talked previously about, asked a question in Pittsburgh Brides about a vendor of some type. And you had messaged me on the side, like, hey, here are our resources. Here are some recommendations I have. And I was like, okay, I've gotten this message from her before. Maybe I'll reach out to her. Because I remember seeing Miranda's story and seeing how that wedding got pulled together for Miranda and her dad. And that was just kind of in the back of my mind. I was like, they've done this before. Maybe they can just give me some insight into resources or like a time, like where do I start? Like give me like a checklist of this is where you need to start. This is what you need to get. And this is where you can end up. Like that's what I was anticipating when I messaged you. It wasn't any of this, which I'm so thankful it wasn't. But I messaged purely so I could get just some semblance of like direction of where is point A.
And I knew that. I knew when you messaged me that you were not asking anything of us but advice. It was very clear to me, but there's a couple emotions that come into play for me as well. One, my father did not get the chance to walk me down the aisle. So this is something that's always on my mind when I hear these stories, and I wish that he would have been. Actually, the last time I saw my father, the last thing I said to him, he said, "What are you going to do with the rest of your life?" I said, "I don't know. I think I'm going to get married and have babies." And that was our last 101 conversation. And we never had the opportunity to embrace that together. So that was part A. And part B was I lost my mom in April of 2024. And my mom knew that she was passing. And when she was passing, she asked me, she's like, "Am I dying?" And I was like, "Yeah, you are. But I'm going to be here with you the whole way. And when I can't be with you anymore, Dad's going to be on the other side and he's going to be waiting for you." And she laughed and then she got a little sad and she said, "I didn't do much with my life. I was just a housewife." I said, "My impact is insignificant." And I stopped her right in her tracks. I said, "Mom, I promise you this. Your impact is going to be huge. I'm going to make sure of it. I have the ability to facilitate and help others." And my mother worked for a charity organization for 40 years. She forgot that she brought like 500 babes this world with that organization.
That's amazing.
And I told her, I said, "Mom, I got you. If you think your footprint was small, I guarantee you it's going to be huge. And I am going to make sure that that happens." And that's my motivation is I am a representation of my parents' legacy, as are you, as are you. And with that in mind, and this is all through my mind, and this is playing out when you message me, I immediately start thinking, you said you wanted a small wedding. Your vision originally was a small, intimate wedding, just a few friends and family, 20 people, and then you still wanted to have your wedding at Oak Lodge in November, correct?
Correct. We were going to kind of do a dual moment and have like something now and then still have like our wedding. But because of Dad's, I think, like trajectory of where he was going, I knew that I wanted to have at least some semblance of a ceremony now that he could participate in and enjoy. And so that's why originally I was like, oh, let's do something small.
Yeah.
And like maybe 20 people max. And then your response to my message was just call me. And I was like, right now? And you were like, yes, right now. You got it. And I remember getting on that phone call. And the first thing you said was like, "I've got you. We've got you. Like we can do this." And you were like, "I've already got a couple of ideas of venues." And like you were listing these things off. I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to work. Like I'm going to be able to give him a ceremony because I reached out to the right person. Like she knows where I can start. And I was still thinking like knowing where to start. Like you've got a couple vendors in mind.
Yeah.
Like I was expecting like just like an info sheet. And you're like, "I'm going to make some calls and I'll give you a call back." And I was like, okay. And we talked about my dress on that call too. And I didn't know if it was in because I had ordered my dress, but they were expecting a wedding in 2026. I didn't know if they had ordered it. And when we got off the phone call, I was like, okay, I can do this. And then again, it hit me. Am I really doing this? Like I felt like I needed some sort of like sign or something. And so I ended up calling the bridal shop and the bride. And I said, "Hey, you may not have this in yet, but I haven't heard anything. And I was just wondering if by chance you've ordered a dress and when that might be in." The girl puts me on hold for a minute or two, like not long. She gets back on and she says, girl, your dress has been here for months. And I scream sobbed. This poor girl on the other line probably
Oh
had
my
no
goodness.
idea what she was getting into by answering that phone call.
That was your
And
sign.
that was my sign. That was the dress I was gonna walk down the aisle in, that Dad was gonna walk me down the aisle to Ashton in. And it was there. It was in and it was there. And I was like, everything else I can make work, but like this was I'm doing the right thing, because if this is already here, this is right.
Divine intervention.
Yes. It's like I needed a punch to the gut or something like that, just like something right in my face to say, hey, you're making the right decision.
And because you already begun the planning process at Oak Lodge and you had this wonderful Renaissance Viking enchanted forest vibe, like you had a vision in your mind. It was very clear, both of you. There was so much love put into your wedding. Ashton making that beautiful ark for you that was handcrafted out of wood.
Wonderful.
Yeah, like you already had purchased decor, started creating your place settings. The horse had left the barn, and I wasn't as clearly aware of how much effort that you had put into that on our phone call. I knew that you had a venue. I knew that maybe you had a dress. And when we agreed to meet at the first venue, which was Gather, and we met Jessica, which she was just the sweetest lady.
So nice.
Yes.
So nice. So wonderful, because she was so kind. I just started sobbing. She was so kind. And I've recommended that venue to so many people because that view is gorgeous in that porch. It's wonderful.
It is a beautiful venue, but it's more on a modern, elegant, even a little bit industrial vibe, which kind of contradicted all the decor that you purchased in the theme of your wedding, correct? And I was not privileged to that, but I was feeling something when we were together.
Because when we were sitting in there, I think I had a moment of, I've spent already a year and a half with this vision in mind. And I wouldn't have changed my decision for anything to move it up, but it was that I needed to adjust what I had already spent a year and a half dreaming up and make those adjustments. And that was the first time I had come face to face with, I'm doing this, like in person, physically, that decision. And Dad had a rough morning that morning. And then it was also just thinking about the distance from the house to there and the air canisters, and just, I think everything was going through my mind, a lot of emotion. But ultimately it didn't, you're right, it didn't really fit with the vibe that I had originally intended. And I believe I expressed that standing in there, though I was sobbing. So I don't know how clearly it was expressed, that I had to make adjustments to my expectations for what I had already pictured.
I think your heart and your head were just having a clash.
Yes.
Like in your mind, you clearly had a vision of what your wedding was going to look like. The same vision that every woman has when they begin planning their wedding. It's not just you, it's any girl out there or any couple that's planning their wedding. They have this clear vision. And the reality is your vision is getting kiboshed a little bit, and your heart wants your dad there more than anything. And so there's this little internal battle going on between your mind and your heart, and you know what you need to do. And I knew that intuitively because I'd walked this walk before. I knew that this is not the ideal circumstance. This is not going to be exactly perfect, but I knew that we had a really good chance of getting damn close, and that I needed you to fight that battle internally with yourself a little bit and trust that we had you. And that's when we went outside and we were sitting next to each other. I knew, I was like, she is not feeling this place. This is not her vibe. This is not her vision. Something's going on internally, and just my intuition or divine intervention, something was kicking in. And I was like, Becky, I made a phone call to a friend, David English. His venue is much closer to where you live. It's within 30 minutes, right? 30 minutes. And I said, this venue is absolutely stunning. It's very similar to the venue that you chose. There's some maybe the Oak Lodge is a little more darker, woodsy vibe, but ultimately they both have similar feels to them. They are surrounded by woods and greenery and the enchanted forest and all those things. Not knowing, I was just imagining Oak Lodge in my mind and then Glen Eden Barn and David English. And I had already made that call to him. And I said, I'm putting you on notice. Can you help? Do you have dates? Tell me what dates you have.
Yeah.
He already gave me dates. And then when I remember sitting down with you outside and saying, you need to see this place. Like, I know you're not feeling it right now and that there's this clash of the titans going on between your head and your heart, but you need to see this place. And we scheduled the tour.
And I have to tell you, I appreciated that conversation so much because I think that's what allowed me to really trust in this process and to ultimately trust in you. Like you had the knowledge and the best of intentions through all of this because you were able to read that situation and one, not make me feel bad for having those feelings. So you validated the feeling and you opened up to me and you also explained the venue. You talked to me about David and how the stories kind of parallel. Um, and being able to sit down and have that conversation. And again, it wasn't a short conversation. It was 45 minutes to an hour just sitting outside and having this kind of heart to heart moment. In that moment, again, I felt comforted for so many different reasons. And I felt like my mom was comforted as well because she knew that in that moment that I was being taken care of in ways that she wasn't able to do and for that. And I left there to go to my dress fitting to pick it up and I felt like at peace because we were able to sit down and have that conversation. So regardless of how the meeting at Glen Eden went, I knew that ultimately my best interests were at heart and that it would all be okay.
Thank you for sharing that with me. I did not realize how much that conversation meant to you.
It meant a lot.
And I think that's experience just from being in the storyline before. And I mean, it goes without saying, every girl dreams of her wedding. She doesn't dream that it's this and that it has to be changed and modified from what her vision is. And I am surrounded and blessed by such beautiful people. You're one of them. We've become friends on this journey and I appreciate that so much. And I appreciate your trust in me and your family's trust in me as well. I know Lori I could feel her that day too. She was not vibing with that space at all either. And I later learned that your mother had pretty much been really critically involved in every wedding. Like she was the planner.
Yes. Well, and partly of that was because my sister and sister-in-law, they faced a very similar situation. And they had about 3 months to plan their wedding when they were expecting to have a year and a half. They don't live in Pittsburgh. And there's nothing like this down in Virginia, Maryland, where they live. So they had to do it all on their own, meaning my mom was very involved in like the hands-on pieces, helping coordinate those things. And we went the night before to set up the venue. We were there that night unloading it. I was moving armoires and like it was a lot. And so I think also going into this, it was knowing that really can't happen this time because I don't have that kind of, I'm not going to move my mom away from taking care of my dad and helping him to plan my wedding or to help do all these things. So it was she was also battling that too because she was like, I want in all the things. So that's again, just she likes being in the things and doing that. And so she was also battling that on her own too. But I think ultimately she was also able to enjoy that day in a way that she'd never been able to enjoy wedding.
That is exactly what I wanted to hear because our goal, and I'm getting a fast forward a little bit here. I want to go to where we met at the venue and we all sat down with the vendors, but ultimately the team's goal, all the volunteers, all of the vendors that you had already hired that changed their dates, our goal was as a team to make sure that you didn't do anything, that you just were in the moment and you enjoyed this day with your mother, your father, Connie and Christina and the rest of your family, and of course, Pete, and that you were present and didn't get so caught up doing things or being a part of it, constructing the event that you lost those memories. That was our signature on it. That's what I personally wanted for you and
And that
relayed that to
happened.
everyone. Yeah, I know it did. I know that did based on feedback that I had from both you and your mother and your family afterwards. But I want to
Yeah.
fast forward to Sunday, the 1st of August. David English made time for us, even though he had 3
Yeah.
weddings that weekend.
Even though he was a busy, busy bee. Did.
So tell me, what was your first impression of David English?
Oh, he's so wonderful. He is a ray of sunshine. Like you walk in the room and he just smiles at you. And it is like, it's so comforting to just be able to walk in a room and have somebody be like, hey, and just embrace you and say, let's do this thing together. Like there was no question in his mind, like we were doing this.
Yeah.
It was so comforting. And being able to just talk with him and hear more about his story and how he still had equipment at his house that could help dad
Yeah.
and things like that with his lung cancer and him being a survivor of lung cancer.
Right.
All that was truly magnificent to hear from him. And truly, it gave me hope that like my dad would be able to move past this. And I was like, I'm seeing somebody in the flesh who has
Right.
been on oxygen, feeling not so great, to put it lightly, and to see them up and moving and running this stunning venue, being active in this community. I mean, it really gave me some hope, and in all the best ways gave me hope. Just speaking with him and talking with him, and even when we sat at that table, we probably had like an hour-long conversation of just stories, and he's a hoot.
For those listening, David English is the owner and proprietor with his wife Vicky of Glen Eden Barn. It's up in Evans City. And this barn was built by the Amish at a different location. And when David had his own journey with, I believe it was stage 4 lung cancer, and he's a survivor and completely cancer free. And he decided he was an optometrist for years. He walked away from his practice and said, I want to do something I love. He bought this barn from the Amish. He had them tear it down piece by piece, label every board, every detail of that barn, moved it to where it's located now, reconstruct it, rebuilt it, and it is absolutely stunning. I mean, your face when you walked in to Glen Eden Barn, I wish I would have had video of that. Both you and Ashton, you were walking around in like total.
Like my eyes met.
You did. You did. It was total.
So pretty.
It was total amazement. Like you both were like 2 children on Christmas morning.
Really?
Ashton was just walking around kind of inspecting everything. Like you could see that he was also taken back at how beautiful this space was. And I think you knew the moment that you walked in, this wedding was going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, and I knew that. And I also knew it was divine intervention, divine guidance that I have a relationship with David English, and I know his backstory. I know what a huge heart he has. I know that he comes from a place of non-monetary gratification, that he just wants to give what he can with what he has. And I loved that conversation when we were sitting with him, and he was like, don't worry, I have linens. Yeah, I got you covered. Oh, don't worry, I have lanterns. I have you covered. I have it covered. Yeah. Like he was just so nonchalant. And I know that you had booked Oak Lodge, put a deposit down on Oak Lodge. Yeah. Is that date still available?
I don't know.
Okay. So if anybody's getting married out there and you want a woodsy vibe in the Summit County area, Oak Lodge has a wedding date available of what date?
It was November 14th of next year, 2026.
Okay. Because
it may still be available. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, the proprietor was really kind and said that if you booked a wedding that he would refund your deposit since you were changing. Is that correct? And I can edit this out if that's incorrect.
That is, that was our original contract, is that I would get it back if they rebooked. While Dad was actually in the hospital, I messaged them and said, I I could really use that money back to pay for a family house down there because we were staying longer. I was out of work. I said, I get our contract with this, and you can totally tell me no, and I would understand that. And without hesitation, they said checks in the mail.
Wow.
Yes,
So they gave you your
they gave me my the deposit back with, to my knowledge, without the date being revoked. I spoke with Matt Hagan.
that just shows
Yeah.
how full circle the
Yes.
angels watching over you were helping you with this. Like, that's unheard of. Like, under any circumstances for
And I totally,
to get their
I
deposit back.
anticipated getting a no, and I was okay with that. I was okay with a no, but I was like, it doesn't hurt to ask, because we were only planning on being at family house after transplant, not before.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to be out of work like this. I was out of work for over a month, and like, I was not planning for that.
Yeah.
So it's like, and again, they could have told me no, and I would have been like, okay. And I probably would have been on Pittsburgh Brides every day saying, date available, date available, date available, take it.
You should get married
I know I've been on there at least once.
Well, I want to shout them out right now. Oak Lodge. It's an amazing venue out in Summit County. And is it Summit County? I'm not sure. I could be wrong on that.
It was in Stallstown. I don't know what county it's in.
Stallstown.
It was in Stallstown.
And they have all these little log cabins that you can rent that are part of the experience. They have a church on site, a log cabin church. It's just an absolutely gorgeous venue. We've been there with the camper photo booth before. And I know personally that the owner was just so hospitable and cared so much about his venue as well. Like, he was outside sweeping leaves and doing things that you would think that he would hire somebody to do, but he was making sure that everything was perfect for the couple for their wedding day. And so I want to shout out to you for the heart and the soul for the community. I know that this couple appreciated it more than words can say. But back to Glen Eden Barn. So we decided, this was August 1st, and we decided that Sunday, August 24th, 2025 was going to be your wedding date. So we had exactly 23 days to plan. 23 days to plan this wedding, which, to your credit, we already had a photographer and a DJ, which you'd connected with, and they agreed to move the date up and still service your event. Yes. And I want to shout them out to Jacob from Sound Waves Entertainment and Morgan from Morgan Cohen Photography. Both of them were more than just vendors that day. Jacob was helping us carry Dad's oxygen up and down the stairs, and Morgan was making sure that she didn't miss any moment. Her and her second shooter, like, they were amazing to work with. So shout out to them. If you need a photographer or a DJ, I would highly recommend either.
Book.
Circling back to that conversation. So that day, knowing how busy I was in August, I reached out to Taylor Myers from Myers Precision Planning. She is a young wedding planner. She just started planning in 2025. She has about 15 weddings under her belt. And I reached out to Kara from Christie Events, Kara Svetkovich, and I asked both of them, can you help me with this? Because I'm going to be a busy girl and I need eyes on everything to make sure that we don't miss anything and that they can truly embrace and enjoy the day. Taylor joined us for the meeting. So she joined the meeting with David English, and we all sat around like old friends and talked for about, I think it was more like 2 hours, because I remember leaving that meeting.
It was a long time.
I remember leaving that meeting.
And
I was like, holy cow, that was 2 hours. But David secured and said, yeah, you're good to go on the 24th and the venue's yours. And he did the graciousness of walking you through the venue and showing you, I'm going to do this. We can move this. We can put the arch here.
He has thought of everything.
Yeah. And he's on site and he's like, I'm even going to bring my team in to work that day to set up the wedding ceremony chairs and everything. And I told him, I was like, I have volunteers. You don't need to, David. He's like, oh no, I'm going to bring them in. And he was just, I truly Love him like a brother. He's such an amazing person. So if you're looking
Yeah.
for a beautiful barn, air conditioned
That is so
venue,
important. Air conditioned.
air conditioned venue. And they have 2 floors, the upper and the lower. They can hold about 150 people. I think they could even push that number if they wanted to with a tent outside. But you can have an outdoor ceremony. They have the capacity to move your ceremony indoors if need be. And then they have the loft, which is for dining and reception. And the acoustics are great. The venue is absolutely stunning, built by the Amish with immaculate detail. And you have a proprietor that has a heart of gold. So excellent choice. You should go tour Glen Eden. I had to do that just as a thank you. And I know you reiterate everything I just said, right?
Yes,
And
wholeheartedly. Without
I just, and it made everything flow so easily too. This is one of the things working with David and him and I knowing each other. There was this element of trust. There was an
you can
element of
see that.
trust with Taylor and I and Kara and I, and we all knew each other and we all knew that we had each other's backs and that it was going to unfold magnificently because I didn't have to micromanage any part of it. David didn't have to micromanage me. He didn't have to ask my permission for anything, vice versa. Like we were
Right.
just really good about that. I think at one point he had a drone come in and fly over your wedding to take film. And he looked at me, he said, I didn't ask permission for that. I was like, you didn't need to. I was like,
Yeah.
we got you.
I got
Like,
told about it afterwards. And I was like, there wasn't a drone. And everyone was like, yes, there was. I was
yeah,
like, no, there wasn't.
yeah,
And then it was. I was like, that's
yeah. And I'm sure he has the footage to share with you as well if you reach out to
yeah.
him. I'm sure he does.
Okay.
That moving forward, I do have some questions for you. So you're starting to feel it now. You're at the venue, you're feeling it. You and Ashton are walking around, you're seeing it, you're seeing that your wedding is going to happen here. And now you have 23 days and it's a crash course in execution. Logistically, we have a lot under our belt that we're handling for you, but you still have to get your dress altered. You have to get all of your bridesmaids and your groomsmen and all of their attire set. You have to get florals if you're going to do florals. You already have part of the decor, but it's not completely ready because it was planning on being ready for 2026,
exactly.
right? So tell me what the next 3 weeks were like for you.
My mom, my cousin, and then one of my bridesmaids spent hours making the centerpieces. We already had these like foam moss wreaths.
I'll put a picture
And
in.
they spent hours like just putting them together and adding in the little things. Makes them very woodsy and whimsical. We built the seating chart, which is actually what's behind me here. Ashton has repurposed our seating chart into a Christmas gift. And so it's wrapped and it's taunting me because I can't open it until Christmas. But our seating chart is right behind me on the wall.
I'll pop a picture in of that as well.
Yeah. So we're working on that. We had to make my bouquet. So I went over to Michael's and just started grabbing fake flowers and plants because I wanted greenery. And I just shoved it in my hand at the store. And I remember just looking at me like, yeah, that'll do. There was no rhyme or reason to that. And then I got back to the house and I said, someone can put this together for me. I'm not artistic. I'm not really creative. And so my bridesmaid Angela just sat there for like 2 hours, just like perfectly placing all of these things. And she'd
It was
take it out and
beautiful.
look at it. It was wonderful. And that was handmade by my bridesmaid. And then my mom actually had to go out to Vandergrift. She grew up on a horse farm out there. And the woman who owns it now still has a bunch of their stuff in like a storage shed for some reason. I don't know why anything got left, but there was actually a horseshoe there that belonged to my mom's favorite show horse, Emerada. And so my mom drove out to Vandergrift to her old house to pick up that horseshoe for me so it could be on my bouquet. And then just a lot of DIY. And then we had to get the groomsmen outfits. So it was getting their sizes and getting everything ordered. And then as far as alterations go, Envy Bride unfortunately wasn't able to fit me in for my dress alterations, which totally fine. Like they're busy bees too. But you had recommended Sue. And I reached out to Sue and instantly she was like, yeah, girl, come on down. And I think I went to see Sue like 3 or 4 times total in that 3-week span just to make sure everything fit exactly right. And she also made my veil.
Which was
So she was able
beautiful.
to put that together for me. It was
Yes,
beautiful.
I
She
love
did a
Sue's.
great job.
Yeah, she's been a seamstress
She's
for,
wonderful.
I mean, her and I are kind of sisters from opposite mothers because I owned a sewing factory in my younger years and I was a pattern maker. I have an industrial sewing machine at home. I think I even
Really?
told you that. I was like, push comes to shove. Push comes to shove, I could help you, but I'm going to send you and recommend you to someone that does this on a regular basis because I'm as good once as I ever was. My eyes and my hands are not as good as they were 20 years ago. But no, I love Sue's and I always recommend her to our brides because she is not afraid to get in and get dirty and get the job done.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
She is wonderful. She's similar to David. You walk in and she's just like, hey, girl. It's just like her energy. And I think we sat there with her multiple times for like 30, 45 minutes after everything was said and done.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Just chit-chatting.
And I'm glad you brought that up.
Costumes, everything. Yeah. She's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I needed to make sure to give her that shout out and I'll add her to the list in the credits on this podcast as well as the one. We did a podcast where I read the letter that your mother sent me. She sent me a beautiful card about when they asked Pete why he wanted a transplant because that's kind of where we're at in the story, right? He became a transplant recipient during this process. So that also had
July 3rd, he got officially listed for transplant. He didn't get any offers until after the wedding, but his score was increasing. So like he was officially listed and then his scores would increase just based on testing. So his scores were consistently increasing, but they weren't going to jump to a place where he could get an offer essentially until he was admitted because that changes scores. So, but we were kind of right at the point where he could have gotten a call for a lung up until the wedding and beyond because he was listed.
And that was a dynamic we were dealing with too, because we're doing this planning, this wedding in 23 days with the intention of making sure that dad's there, that he can walk you down the aisle, that you have that memory. And then in your mind and more so in your heart, you want him to get that transplant. And so in your mind, you're battling that. You're like, you really want that transplant to come in. But what happens here if that happens? And I think that was the other part of working with myself and David English and the other. We're like, we don't care. Like, we'll reschedule the wedding. It's not that big of a deal, right? But I know that internally, you had even said to me at one point, you said, well, maybe the transplant will come in and dad will get the transplant. And he'll be healthy and everything will be good. And it'll all be a big joke or a big laugh on me that I went to this extent, right? Is that, you were feeling that at the time, correct?
I was feeling that because I was like, the universe is going to come back and just be like, you're dramatic, you're overreacting. We're going to get him his transplant. He's going to be fine. It's going to come to your original wedding date and he's going to be there and he's going to be fine. And you did this. Not for nothing, but like you did this a little sooner than you needed to. At least that was my hope. Like I was hoping the universe was going to laugh at me and be like, you did a little too much there. I have a tendency to do a little too much. And obviously that didn't happen, but I was really hoping for that.
And I know that. And I know Lori and Christina and Ashton and Connie, I know everybody was praying and hoping for that. And we were as well. Like we were putting it out on our prayer line. We wanted the best possible outcome for Pete. We wanted him to be healthy. We wanted you to have your dream wedding. And we were only trying to facilitate and help you to make sure that happened regardless.
Right.
And there were some moments this day. I want to come back to. You have everything set. You guys got your glue guns out. You're up to your eyeballs in creating swag for the wedding. You made those beautiful water cups. I'll put a picture in.
Yeah.
You made these beautiful centerpieces that were an enchanted forest, and they had little deer and raccoons and little animals. And I think there was an alien in one. I think that was for Ashton. Yes.
Yeah. It was No Face. It's from an anime.
Okay. And so we had all this and Kara was working on the cookie table. Taylor Myers kept everyone in the loop and organized on every aspect. Yeah, she was incredible, right? like so enthusiastic.
Incredible.
She lost her mom last Christmas, 2 days after Christmas. And so she was coming from the same space that her mom was put into nursing care 2 weeks before she was married. And her mom didn't get to be at her wedding. And so she was all in. Like, she was like, I'm
Yeah.
going to do this for Becky. She was coming from the same place that I was, that, you know, if my mom can't be there, I'm going to make sure that somebody else's dad is, and that this happens. And I love that about her. She's just a beautiful person, so
She
structured.
is the nicest human.
Yeah.
So sweet, so bubbly, so organized. But she always had an answer, always had the ducks in the row. She's great.
Yeah. She did lose it at one point. I don't know if you were aware of this or not, but
I saw it on the podcast that you guys
yeah.
did. We kind of family watched it together. And that was the first time I realized that anyone had any sort of emotions outside of me, which
Yeah.
is obviously like silly to think of. But I think I was so in that moment that it didn't matter what was happening around me. I knew we were surrounded. Like I knew there was eyes on it, but I don't think I took into account that anyone else was feeling anything.
Yeah.
And I was truly just in that moment with him. I had no idea that anything else was happening. So I didn't know that she had those feelings. I found that out during that podcast.
There was a collective consciousness of empathy and, you know, self-reflection and memories, and everyone identifying with either you as the bride or dad. So I have to ask you this question because have not yet had the chance to ask you. Your first look with dad was incredibly emotional. Like, the look on his face pretty much says how he was feeling. How were you feeling in that moment?
Happy he was there, happy he could see it. I felt like, it feels so silly to say, but I felt like a little girl, like,
Yeah.
Daddy, look at my dress.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to know no details. He wanted to, not even Dad's my shoe. He wanted to know nothing. He really wanted that moment. And so if I was going to do a first look with anybody, it was going to be him. The little smile that went on his face, like, reminded me of when I was a little girl. And it meant everything.
I believe his words was, wow, beautiful. You're beautiful. I didn't hear, but I could read like his lips, what he was saying when Lori turned him around. And I'm going to pop a little clip of that in so that we can share it with the world, because it was such a touching moment and one that's going to live in my heart forever. I'm never going to forget the look on his face when he looked at you and he saw you, and you could tell he was truly taken back and he was surprised and just
There's a
so
photo of
grateful.
that. Yeah, I think Morgan caught it. The perfect photo of him, like, turning around his eyes and smile. That's my phone background right now.
You make sure to send
So
that one to me, because I'm going to pop those in here to share with everyone. But then we have the first look and we're ready for the ceremony. We're lining everyone up. At that moment is when Taylor broke down and she lost it. Like, when she saw the emotions between the two of you, we were there and I pulled her aside and I was like, I know what you're feeling. I got you. And she was like, I'm so sorry, Dawn. She kept apologizing. And I was like, it's okay. I was like,
you're allowed to have emotions.
yeah, we're all here. You know, we're all
Yeah.
feeling it. And I was holding strong. I was like, I was the statue. I was trying to maintain and hold mine, and sat down and talked to Pete on the couch downstairs. David sat down and talked to him. It was really hard on David to talk to him because David had so much
I'm sure.
empathy for
Yeah.
him. He was in his shoes
Right.
prior. And he
And that's
said,
gotta be so hard.
he told me that. He's like, Dawn, that was really hard for me. I didn't expect it to be that hard, but it was really hard for me to sit down there and see, because that was me.
That was him, yeah.
That was me. And he's like, but I enjoyed my conversation with him and everything started coming together. And gosh, this wedding you put together was gorgeous. All the details, all the decorations. I'm going to start popping things in. The bells that you had for the ceremony, the signage, the Enchanted Forest theme, the cookie table, all your family, everybody contributed on that. But now it's time for the ceremony. And there was this controversy. I say controversy, conversation is probably a more appropriate word, about Dad's strength. And I have done 2 other weddings like this before in the last year. And this was the first time that I noticed that there was a real problem. And that problem was, wow, Dad doesn't have a nurse. He doesn't have an aide. He doesn't have anyone to assist him with getting up, standing down, getting a drink of water, going to the bathroom, getting in and out of his chair, anything. In previous weddings that we did when we were at Shadyside Hospital, we had the nurses. The nurses got Dad ready and shaved him and dressed him and did everything for the wedding. And prior to that, Dad was strong enough to stand up and walk. So this was the first time that I had a scenario that I never saw that coming. And I'm glad that I know this because it will help me with future weddings such as this. But I was like, ooh, I need to figure out how I'm going to navigate these waters. How am I going to make sure that Dad is safe? Because he was determined. That conversation was going on about whether he had the strength to walk you down the aisle or not. He was not having any part of it.
Yeah.
Was he?
Which makes sense.
Yeah. He was adamant. And I remember him saying that, I am walking my daughter down the aisle. And he said it with such authority, like, back the F off.
Yeah. Which, again, makes sense.
And I know that the people that were chiming in were coming from a good place.
Yes.
And concern for his health and everything. And when I saw that dynamic going on, and he basically said, I am walking my daughter down the aisle.
Like,
yeah, shut it down. It's done. It's a decision's been made. And that's when I was
very
like,
much Pete.
I pulled Paul over, Paul Walker.
Love Paul.
I call him my son. He works for us. He works for Elite Casino Events. He does the events with us, does photo booth with us. And he's always my muscle, right? Whenever we're doing events, anything's heavy, I'm like, Paul, I need your help.
Yes.
And even to the extent, he was one day helping me with my mom, getting her in and out of a wheelchair. And I was like, Paul, you have one job today. This is your job. This is your task. You do not leave his side. You are his shadow. You pick him up. You sit him down, you get him a drink, you help him go to the bathroom, you help him with his oxygen. Your job is to protect Dad. Dad does not faint. Dad does not get dizzy or weak without Paul being there to catch him. I was like, you got that? Can you do that, Paul? He's like, I got it. You're good.
And he had it.
Yeah.
He had it.
Yeah.
He never left Dad's side. And I heard about Paul for that entire week after the wedding that Dad was every day.
Yeah.
Paul this, Paul that, Paul does this, Paul does that. I'm like, okay, I get it. You like Paul more than me. We're making jokes that Paul was his favorite kid.
He is such a spiritual person. And that's one of the reasons I asked him to volunteer that day. I was like, Paul, I think I'm going to need some help. I'm not sure what I need, but can you help me? Can you join us? He was the first one there, 9:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
He was the last one to leave.
He was.
Yeah. And then he did. He did exactly what I asked of him and more. And even when it came time, after the ceremony, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but I was like, Dad's tired. He wants to go home, and I think honestly, Dad, what do you think about that when Dad wanted to go home?
Just right after the ceremony?
Yeah. Right after dinner.
Right after dinner, probably, a mix of things. One, tired for sure. But two, I think normally he's the life of a party. He's the first one on the dance floor, leading the shot brigade. He's not that we had shots, but he's the first one to start the party. And the fact that he wasn't able to even dance probably emotionally took more of a toll on him than even he anticipated. And the fact that everyone had to come over to him and get on his level, I'm sure that upset him because he is a very strong, very proud man, and to have to kind of admit weakness in that moment was probably not fun. But I'm glad he stayed.
Intuitively, I also think that he felt, and I don't know your father, I could be wrong here, but I think that he felt that maybe he was taking a little bit of your thunder, and a little bit of the spotlight was on him. And he wanted it to be on you. It seemed like, because he was a little bit shy, when he was sitting there, he was pointing towards you. He wanted the spotlight to be on you. And I think that might've been part of it, but,
whereas I wanted it on him.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what love is, right? And I told Paul, I was like, they're going home. I don't want the groomsmen to have to leave the wedding and leave the celebration. So can you go with mommy and make sure that dad is safe? He's like, I gotcha. And he did. And yeah, kudos to Paul
They loved
Walker.
that.
Kudos to Paul Walker. I love you to the
Yeah,
moon and back.
they loved that. The fact that the next day they were like, he came home. He made sure dad got inside. He helped us get all the stuff inside. He made sure we were all settled before he went back to like help clean up there. Like what an amazing, again, all I heard about was Paul and how we love Paul, which I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. I love Paul. He's a fantastic human.
I am blessed. I have some true angels around me and friendships, people that always think of the greater good. But I want to go to the moment that you're behind the barn doors and they're playing, what was the song that they played?
It was Feels Like Home.
And they opened the barn doors and we, with Paul and your cousin.
My cousin's husband, yes.
Both were shadowing your father. We got him to like the end of the aisle. And I'm going to pop in some video here because the aisle was not short.
It wasn't
by
short.
any means.
Yeah, it wasn't short. And like and that was part of the discussion too that we were having with dad is like, hey, we can have you sit here, or at the very end. And I just meet you there. Like we had options for him and he chose the spot. And then I left it at that. Like, okay, whatever you say. But yeah, that aisle was not short. And I remember when I met up with him, we were good. And as we were walking, he was just shaking. And I was like he's, in my mind, it was because he was struggling. Come to find out later, he was struggling because his pants broke and he was struggling to keep his pants up. So here I was walking down the aisle thinking, my sweet daddy's shaking, he's so full of emotions. And this is the part.
My goodness.
Well, so one little funny thing.
You got a little chuckle out of that afterwards. But as I said in the first podcast, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it was a moment I will never forget. Being able to have that walk with him and then meet my mom at the front of the aisle to have that moment. It was everything I could have hoped for in that scenario.
Are you glad you did what you did and changed the wedding date? No regrets?
No regrets.
Ashton doesn't have any regrets?
None.
That makes me really happy because there's a risk involved, you know?
Right.
There's this dream that you have. If there's any other brides out there that are facing a parent that has an illness like this and they're in the same spot, what would your advice to them be?
Listen to your gut.
Good advice. If your heart and your head are having a clash.
Yeah.
It was a special moment. And I mentioned this in the podcast, our Thanksgiving podcast, when I was reading your mother's card. David and English and I were at the back of the aisle after you walked down the aisle and you joined Dad and you walked all the way front, and we're, all eyes are obviously on the two of you and on the bride for obvious reasons, but it's also this moment of relief that we executed this, we did this, we got this to happen against all odds, against the timeline, against his frailty and health. And he was feeling a little weak that day too, having a hard time. So, and David English and I we were, as soon as you got to the end of the aisle, we just looked at each other. It was just this, and we both just started bawling like babies. That was our moment. Like we were like, and he's like, I'm so proud to do this with you. I'm like, I'm so proud to do this with you. And it just felt so good to be in that moment and be a part of this. And I can't even thank you and your family enough. You, Ashton, Lori, Christina, Connie, the entire family, because, and I said this before, and I'll say it again, you gave us the gift of the privilege of trusting us and allowing us to facilitate this for you. Because if we can't do things for each other as part of our humanity, and we can't use our God-given gifts to bless others, what's the purpose? And in that moment, Dave and I both realized that our journey is exactly where we're supposed to be. We're doing exactly what we're supposed to be. And that we have the joy of knowing that we can do things like this. And
it was beautiful.
Thank you. I didn't get a chance to say thank you to you today, because I want you to know that from the bottom of my heart. And I'm never forget your wedding.
Me neither.
I'm never going to forget your wedding. I'm never going to forget being a part of it. And then you writing that speech to me. That was the only thing I was kind of mad at you for. The bride and the groom, they have a speech to give, right, at dinner. And then she starts shouting out Pittsburgh Brides and the vendors in the venue. And I'm like, that was very kind of you.
To Dawn from Pittsburgh Brides, thank you for being the spark that lit this fire. A single Facebook message started this whole journey, and we are eternally in your debt. To Taylor from Precision Planning, Kara from Carissa Planning, and Dr. David English, who owns this stunning venue. Y'all can't tell me it's not. It's beautiful. Yeah.
That was very kind of you. Unnecessary, but very kind and very unexpected. We did not see that one coming a mile away. Like, there's no way we saw that. And thank you for that. I appreciate your graciousness and being here today. So I do want to, in closing, tell me, has this experience changed the way that you see love, family, and time?
I think it solidified my feelings because I already knew, like, my family has already been very close knit and would have done all of this at any given point in time. But I think it solidified it as far as love of the community and for those around you and strangers, and that they have the capacity to do these amazing things for other people, even though you don't know them or like you didn't know me. And it was one message. I was like, help. And it turned into something spectacular for myself, but also for my dad to have that as one of his last things before he went into the hospital and didn't come home. To be able to give that to him.
Yeah.
Means everything and really just solidifies the love for people and community.
What is the part of your dad that you're going to carry with you every day?
You know, for his funeral, we all kind of wrote something. My mom wrote something, my sister wrote something. And I'm not, like, contrary to the speech, like, I'm not much of a writer. And so I made a list of, like, the 10 things my dad taught me. And a lot of times it was something silly, like, almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, followed by a lesson in what hand grenades was. Where his favorite one when I was a teenager was that if he loves you, he'll cut your steak, right? It's acts of service, you know?
Yeah.
But I think above all else, like, the family is everything.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Nobody truly passes or dies as long as there's somebody left to remember them. And I learned that a very, very long time ago. I was 18 years old when my sister died, and she was my best friend. And so grief is a journey that I'm all too familiar with, and it's evolving and changing. And it's been 40 years since my sister passed, but I can remember some of those moments like they were yesterday, and long live her memory in my heart. And I do my best with my parents to make them proud every day, as I know that you will with your father. He was so proud of you that day. He was beaming with pride, even not so much even the first look, but when we were up on the second level in the reception, and he couldn't take his eyes off of you. He was so proud of you. He watched every moment. He savored every moment, and you were so loved. And that in itself is a gift, because not, as you said earlier, not all of us grow up with parents that love us and have that gift. Yes. And the wonderful gift that he left you. Do you feel that because you moved the wedding up, you lit a spark in him to be there for you? Because I saw that spark. Yeah. It was obvious. It was obvious. Like, he was so, his smile and his joy in being there was just so infectious. And everyone around, your family was so amazing. And I know that you have a huge support system with them. And I know that you have a long walk to go on this journey. It doesn't end. It doesn't end. But I will tell you my personal experiences. I've had signs from my mom that she's okay. I can edit this out of the podcast, but have you had any signs?
I don't think anything that's been, like, overtly obvious. So, and that's okay.
Ask for one.
Yeah.
Ask for one. Ask for one, whether it's by memory or spirit, and you'll be surprised at maybe how that'll unfold. I know that you've created something in your dad's memory at the hospital. Can you share that with me?
We're actually doing the dedication for it today. Yeah, so right when I leave here, we're heading over to UPMC Presby to the CTICU. And
Okay.
in the corner of the CTICU family waiting room, there was already some shelves there, but they were empty. That room we spent 12 hours a day in for 2 weeks straight. You know, people are in there, people are out of there. You connect sometimes, you know, but you overhear things. And it's very isolating and very scary because we're all on
Yeah.
edge. And my dad was a conversationalist and just loved people. And he also loved reading, loved games and puzzles and things like that. So we reached out to the social worker over at Presby that we had worked with. Her name is Colleen. And we had proposed this idea of Pete's book nook. And you're going to fill this corner potentially with books and games and cards and just everything that you can need in that room to connect or find solace or an escape. And we got the approvals. So then I put a call out on Facebook and I said, hey, if anybody has any books that they, you know, wanted to donate, feel free or sell at a low cost, right? We're trying to do this. And I gave a whole explanation as to what it was. And I had probably 50 people that reached out and said, I have books for you. And so we were doing neighborhood pickups. I've had one individual that dropped off about 5 full boxes of books. Yes. And so my mom and I have spent the last couple weeks researching the books, making sure that they're shelf appropriate, kind of
Sure.
labeling them with recommended age ranges and things like that.
Aw.
And we're going today to do a dedication for Pete's book, UPMC Presbyterian CTICU Family Reading Room.
So sweet that they're allowing you to do that.
Yeah.
What a great way to honor your dad. I saw the term poker in that listing. Like, was your dad a poker player?
He loved any card game. So he loved a good game of poker, euchre. He loved all of those.
Oh my God, I love euchre. That's like the best game ever.
He and his cousins will sit there at our family reunion and they gather around and they play euchre, and it is the meanest I have ever seen those grown men. Then they walk away and they're just joking and happy. I'm like, y'all were just so mean to each other.
That's so funny.
A very intense game of euchre.
That's so funny. And I know that your dad was also a donor. He donated his heart and his lungs to IPF research.
Correct. So when his provider, Dr. Daniel Cass, worked for the Simmons Center at UPMC. And that's where Dad did all of his clinical trials that he participated in through. So ultimately, Dad did 4 clinical trials to test out new medications for the treatment of IPF, for the safety and the efficacy. And then he decided long ago that he would make sure that his lungs were donated to the Simmons Center specifically because they do research for pulmonary fibrosis. So that way, even in his death, you know, they could hopefully find a reason or find something that could help, because right now there is no cure for pulmonary fibrosis.
Well, and I know there's comfort for you in that part of his wishes moving forward is to help others. And it seems like that was his profile of, by nature, being in the Air Force for 18 years, right? Well, it was an honor. It was an honor and a privilege to meet him and to be a part of this. And I wish you a good day today. Maybe that sign will come today. You tell me if it does. I have a feeling. So. I have a feeling you're going to have a little sign. And I would love to get together and have lunch or dinner with you and the family one day.
Yeah.
Maybe after the holidays.
Yeah.
After the craziness. I will be thinking of you during the holidays, you and Lori. And please give my best to Lori and Christina and Ashton and Connie, and let them know that they're in our prayers and our thoughts during this time of grief. Becky, thank you for making time for me today. I appreciate it so much. And to all the brides out there or couples that are listening to this message, you can plan a wedding in 23 days. We proved it. It's determination and heart. That's all you need. And maybe some wedding angels, right?
Yes. I was going to say, a really great community. people to
Yeah.
lead on.
Becky, thank you so much for being with us today. I appreciate that you trusted us and that you allowed us the privilege of being a part of your wedding and your story. Your wedding is forever a part of my heart. Thank you so much for having us there. My pleasure. My pleasure. And I hope that any other brides that may be in the same position know that you should reach out to your family and your community and trust your gut, right? Trust your gut. Do what your heart tells you to do. Your mind might argue with you a little bit, but follow your heart.